adjudicated of 17 counts of murder in the first degree, the jury having returned a verdict of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Is there any legal reason why I should not impose a sentence at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
And that is under 921.143, the victims under counts 1 through 17, and also the surviving victims of the attempted homicides have a right to express themselves as to the everything that could not be expressed under victim impact. They can express themselves as to crime and what they think should have been the appropriate disposition and sentence. It is anticipated that that could be a lengthy sentencing hearing because it applies to all 34 counts of the indictment.
Okay, are you prepared to present that testimony now?
No, we're not, Your Honor. And under the statute, it says that the victims have a right to present that testimony, and also, as you know, under the Florida Constitution, the victims have a right to be heard, and that the victim should present that testimony before you announce sentence.
Okay, when can we do that on November 1st, which is a Tuesday?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, I'll read.
He does have the serial killer glasses on, as you can see. Here is Ken Klippenstein's lawyer / public defender, Beth Burden, talking about the death penalty in Florida. Not here to debate the death penalty, just here to clear up confusion on the Parkland verdict, because it's a little different than what most people are used to seeing. In a death penalty case in Florida, the state charges aggravating factors. Those are set out by statute. The state must prove those aggravating factors beyond a reasonable doubt, and the verdict for those must be unanimous. If no aggravating factors are proven beyond a reasonable doubt, the defendant is not eligible for the death penalty and the sentence is life. In Florida, life means life. If the jury finds at least one aggravating factor has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt, the jury then must determine whether the aggravating factor or factors is sufficient to warrant a possible penalty of death. This must also be unanimous. If the jury votes no, the sentence is life. If the jury unanimously finds the aggravating factor is sufficient to warrant the death penalty, and they look at mitigating circumstances from the defense. There are some mitigating circumstances set out by statute, but the defense is not limited to those. The defense has to prove mitigating circumstances by the greater weight of the evidence, and whether the defense has proven a mitigating circumstance doesn't have a unanimous decision. Regardless of the jurors' findings on mitigating circumstances, the jurors then have to determine unanimously whether the aggravating factors that were proven beyond a reasonable doubt outweigh the established mitigating circumstances. If the answer is no, then the sentence is life. Oh, Jesus. Makes it more complicating. God, I fucking hate lawyering and lawing and doing law stuff. Blah, blah, blah. Someone working currently on defense for capital crimes, I hope that one day those who pursue the death penalty will one day have the bloodthirst satisfied by the loving kindness of the community around them. Yeah, I'm anti-capital punishment, and that, of course, even extends to someone like Nicholas Cruz. However, I do believe, given the other circumstances and the lack of adequate mental health care coverage for people who do engage in these incredibly violent, psychopathic crimes, like Blammo did, I do think that at this stage, you have to, the Parkland shooter, I shouldn't say his name, you're right. I do believe that, permanent institutionalization is a necessity. That's it. That's all I want to talk about with respect to the shooter. Let's take a look at what the parents are saying.
Jail. I'm sorry. That is not okay. As a country, we need to stand up and say that's not okay.
It's also kind of wild that like mainstream news, is also so fucking bloodthirsty that they will run this. Oh, Jesus Christ. What do we use the death penalty for? Traffic violations? Yeah. How about never using it? Anyway, I'm really impressed that the jury chose against capital punishment. I thought that for sure they would want him killed. Yeah. Especially in a place like Florida.
I pray that that animal suffers every day of his life in jail. And he should have a short life.
It's got to be such a disappointing day. 4 years you've...
But don't you think taking what the victims' families want into consideration is a big thing? Rehabilitative justice factors in the victim's considerations into what kind of restitution can be offered. But of course, some families, or even a lot of them, maybe even all of them, are going to say he should be fucking murdered, like he butchered our children, because that's what he did. I'm curious, why are you against it when these cases arise? Capital punishment is unjustifiable, in my opinion. I think that state-sanctioned murder is pretty black and white. It's just unacceptable in every instance. Does not matter, especially when the adequate legal process has taken place. I consider it to be barbaric. I consider it to be unjustifiable. I understand. My heart goes out to the victims' families in this circumstance. I completely understand their rage, their justifiable frustration with the system. School shooters, pedophiles, serial killers should be subject to capital punishment. No, even then, I think permanent institutionalization is adequate in that situation. I mean, we literally we already torture. American prison system is a torturous institution. That needs to change as well. Your goal for prison is to lower the recidivism rate, lower the rate that people are likely to recommit, and to reintegrate these people into society. Okay, if that's your goal, then killing people in prison and also putting them permanently away for the most part, especially when a lot of people could be rehabilitated if given the appropriate, adequate health care, the adequate mental health care, the adequate job opportunities, training programs, and whatnot. Killing them or locking them up and throwing away the key is not the adequate response, unless your goal is vengeance. And justice is not about vengeance. Justice is not about vengeance. Justice is about justice, restitution, making sure that we can coexist in this society. Now, having said that, the reason why, you might have fucking noticed, the reason why I say, like, well, there are certain people that do deserve permanent institutionalization. There are still people on this planet that we cannot fix, okay? There are still issues. A lot of the crime, or even the violent crime, happens as a consequence of people's material conditions. And of course, material conditions play a significant role in the most psychotic bloody murderers and pedophiles and whatnot as well. However, there are still always going to be people that want to do violent things, people that demonstrate antisocial personality disorder, what you would know in I don't know, popular culture as psychopathic murderers, psychopathic killers. People that do not have, people's brain chemistry is just not adequate, not working. That doesn't mean all psychopaths are murderers. That's not the case. But there are still rare instances that our current level of medical technology and understanding of the human brain, understanding of the cognitive conditions, cannot adequately take care of, cannot adequately solve. Those are the people that I believe should be permanently institutionalized. That's what I do believe. What you're talking about is literally 0.0001% of offenders, though, to be clear. I mean, there's a lot of people. There are a lot of people that do violent sex crimes. There are a lot of people that engage in actions that are completely and wholeheartedly unjustifiable. These are society-breaking acts of violence, okay? For the safety and security of everyone else, until these people have been adequately rehabilitated, some of which can be, and others that cannot, you need to keep them away. Which is why I always say, like, yes, prisons as a system, in the way that we understand it currently, is completely inadequate. Completely. What was your take on Ted Bundy? Not a gotcha. Ted Bundy is a great example of what I just said. Jeffrey Dahmer, another great example of what I just said. There are people that need to be kept away. No, these are examples, okay? These are examples of sex offenders, of repeat sex offenders, like, you know, the pedophiles, like pedophile rapists, right? Serial killers. There are certainly people that are repeat offenders, and no amount of being in a prison and no amount of rehabilitation will actually help them get better. They just can't. They can't do it. And those people still need to be kept away. If you cannot be, adequately rehabilitated, if our current medical tech does not have the innovation to deal with people like that, then you have to keep them away. That's how I feel. This does not mean that, like, even people who have engaged in domestic abuse, which is a gruesome, violent, horrifying, and traumatizing crime, a violent crime. should never have the opportunity to rehabilitate themselves. People who have sold drugs, people who have stolen. There are plenty of people who have engaged in violent crimes that could be rehabilitated. Other societies have tried and have had plenty of successful results in rehabilitating people like this. The goal of a criminal justice system should not be to satisfy the urges of the victims. Justice system is not about vengeance. It's about making sure that you immediately stop violent people from furthering their acts of violence, and then also making sure that those violent people can then reintegrate into society. That's the goal. If that's not the goal, like in the United States of America, where it's not the goal, you end up with America having 4% of the entire planet's population, but housing 25% of the entire planet's incarcerated population. We have the highest rate of prisoners per capita, and that is not an accident. That is by design, because through our immigration detention facilities and through our federal and state prison systems, we have created a permanent underclass. People that, do the license plates, people that fight fires in states like California, doing it for 25 cents to $1 an hour. Because slavery was not fully abolished in this country. It was just institutionalized and codified under the 13th Amendment. Slavery is still legal in the United States of America. It is such a morally abhorrent picture that we have private for-profit prisons in this country. Think about that. That also, once again, goes back to capitalism. How does it go back to capitalism? Because you need another permanent workforce, a permanent underclass that you can always exploit. Some of these places like Angola in Louisiana, the Louisiana State Penitentiary, is a perfect example of a place that hasn't even hidden its slavery symbolism. You have a gigantic plantation in Angola, in Louisiana, where black people have life sentences picking cotton. It's a perfect example. Joe Biden himself has also played a role in this. And no, someone said Angola is in Alabama. That's not true. Angola is the Louisiana State Penitentiary. It's also known as the Alcatraz of the South, or the Angola Plantation, or the farm. It's a maximum security prison farm in Louisiana. I mean, here, this is a picture from Angola. Here you go. What do you think this is? Why do you think he's called Angola? Named Angola after the former slave plantation that occupied this territory. Plantation was named after the country of Angola, from which many of the slaves originated before arriving in Louisiana. There is a lot of work to be done in the United States of America. And oftentimes, some of the worst offenses, some of the worst state-sponsored atrocities are committed against those who are the most marginalized people. Prisoners is one of those groups that I talk about regularly.
Been living this nightmare, and it's just, there's never going to be any closure, but this really wasn't the outcome you wanted.
No, I mean, definitely not. I mean, it's been almost 5 years. We came here today, and it wasn't even a doubt in my mind that this would be the death penalty. I'm beyond disgusted of what happened, what occurred. And again, what is the death penalty for, if not for the murder and killing of 17 people?
This is an adequate question. This is a true question. Because, if there is such a thing as capital punishment, why is it not being used in this circumstance as appropriate? State of Florida likes to use capital punishment on, mentally ill and mentally ill black people for the most part, just like Texas. So yeah, abolish it.
What would you ask jurors? What would you ask them if they were right here in front of you?
What were you thinking? This isn't about your personal beliefs. It's not about your religious values. It's about the heinous crime that was committed. There is no recovery. Jail's about rehabbing someone. There is no rehabbing.
Is there any sense of relief that at least you don't have to come to court anymore? At least you don't have to see this guy anymore?
Doesn't matter at this point.
And
We still have to go to the cemetery to go see our daughter.
Do you think there was somebody on the jury, at least one person who, from the get-go, invoked their life, no matter what the evidence showed?
Probably.
Laura, Elon, you guys had to sit there for nearly
Everybody calm down. What are you doing? Like dunking on a guy whose fucking daughters died in the hands of a bloody murderer? If anything, be more mad at the fucking media pointing a microphone in his face and in his moment of weakness and anger, justifiable anger, nonetheless, he's popping off. Most people, if not all people, would feel the exact same in his shoes. It's a normal, adequate, measured, I would say, response to having your children taken away from you. When I talk about the death penalty and capital punishment being inappropriate, abhorrent, a human rights violation, I'm right, but I also am a human being who completely understands why this person feels the way that they do. You know?
50 minutes and listen to them go count by count. Can you tell us what those moments were like?
We sat there for over 12 hours waiting to find out our child was dead. And we just sat there being tortured by another hour waiting.
This idea of the mitigating factors being his mental illness or this alcohol-induced syndrome, that did not outweigh the aggravating did not outweigh the fact that he may have been mentally ill. What does that mean to you?
So that means that everyone that has a mental illness should go on a killing spree? That's what we're telling this society? That we're saying that's okay because you have a mental illness? Mental illness isn't cured. And he had antisocial personality disorder, amongst others, oppositional defiant disorder, but it doesn't give him the right to go and kill 17 children, 17 people. And I'm sorry, this is just not okay.
Were you okay with how the state prosecuted the case? Or do you think they could have done anything differently to elicit a different sentence?
I think the state did a great job. I think they did what they could. We're very thankful for them. Unfortunately, the system continues to fail us.
Would you say today's a tragic day in Broward County?
It's a stain. I'm sorry. It's just a stain, and I live here. It's a stain on this world that we live in. Broward County. It's really just a real
disappointment.
disappointment.
Have you been robbed of justice? Have you been robbed of justice?
Absolutely. Absolutely have.
Would you say the state let your daughter down?
Yes. The jurors let us down. We have a jury system for a reason, and they let us down. They gave their personal beliefs, but they didn't go by the evidence. There was no mitigating factors. I'm sorry. Any mitigation was disproven clearly in the court. There's no reason. And if there is a reason, then why are we allowing people to just go randomly kill others? Is that what we're telling our society? But there's mitigating factors, a lot of hogwash.
Do you think Cruz should have been locked up long before February 14, 2018, at least in a mental institution or something along those lines?
Locked up, yes. Mental otherwise, I don't know what the right thing is, but he should have been locked up. He should have been in shackles every time he came into the court. He should have been in shackles the entire time he was there. He's not a human being, he's an animal.
Laura, in the last 4 years, you guys have done so much work.